The Super Mario series is one with a lot of prestige, containing multiple games that laid down the golden standard for platformers of their respective time, both in 2D and when the series jumped into the third dimension. Releasing classic after classic, Mario has become synonymous with games themselves. Then there's Super Mario Sunshine, a game that I never really got and has always been sort of sidelined when talking about 3D Mario, but because it was a Mario game, I always assumed I was missing something others saw in it. That was until I tried it again a few years back and realised that this game is busted. One with so many issues that I couldn't not make a whole ass video essay on it, because this game has had it too easy for too long, and it's my duty to remind you all that even mega giants of the industry have uh-oh stinky moments. I'm gonna be mean to this game, like real mean, and I'm also gonna talk mad shit in regards to some of the design decisions present within, but most of this is just speculation and hyperbole from the perspective of someone who's done some game dev themselves. Just letting you know I mean no harm or offense before I tear this game to shreds. With that in mind, Super Mario Sunshine can go jump off a cliff, and I firmly believe that if this game had none of the Mario branding and had to prove itself through gameplay alone before being mindlessly showered with praise by every GameCube virgin within a 5-mile radius, it would be remembered as just another Scrimblow Bimblow platformer down there with Billy Hatcher and fucking tacking the power of Juju. In this video, I'll start from the top and work my way down this pyramid of trash to explain how Mario Sunshine is deeply flawed at every level, right down to its foundations. I'm also going to be comparing this game a lot to Mario 64, less so than other 3D Marios, cause that's not fair, they haven't been made yet, but also because Sunshine runs directly off of 64's framework and is sort of its successor, more so than any game in the franchise before 2017. The footage from this video is from my most recent playthrough on the 3D All-Stars collection, but rest assured I've also finished the GameCube version, so you know I'm fully qualified to rip into it as hard as I'm about to. But let's start off with probably the least egregious yet completely baffling aspect of this game's design. The structure of its levels and the weird relationship Mario Sunshine has to the concept of player freedom. When announcing Odyssey, Nintendo claimed it would be a successor to the 3D exploratory Mario games, drawing a very clear distinction in what they believe that to be, with 64 and Sunshine being the only two before Odyssey. But that's not really the case, is it? This game's structure is not like 64 or Odyssey, but it's not like the linear, more objective-based 3D Marios either. Instead, it goes for this really awkward middle ground that feels overly restrictive, yet at the same time without focus, both in the levels themselves and the way they're presented to the player. Most of the levels in Sunshine are built very open, inviting the player to explore and find out what they can do. The answer usually being, sorry, you thought you could explore this open world openly? What are you, fucking stupid? You a baby? You a little stupid little baby? As it turns out, you can't tackle the challenges present in any order except one right after another. You have to do this boss before trying a red coin challenge. You have to win the blooper race before more platforming challenges. It leads to so many moments that make me ask, why are you letting me wander off and explore the map and then punishing me for that? And by the second or third world, I stopped even attempting to do anything but what the mission tells me to do, which grew into a feeling similar to being a kid at a theme park. Wait, hang on, no, there is a theme park in the game, and I want to ride the goddamn Ferris wheel, but Nintendo goes, nope, we're going on the pirate ships first. Oh, but you can go on the Ferris wheel still, and hey, there's even a few blue coins. We're not talking about blue coins yet. But sure, say I am satisfied with the reward of a blue coin or two. Come a few episodes later, when it is time to go on the Ferris wheel, I'll be bored because I've already been on it now, and to be honest, it wasn't that great anyway. I get why this is the case for some shines. Mario 64 also had some stars that were only obtainable as the level evolved, but a lot of the challenges could have just been lumped together on the same episode. Maybe it was done for memory issues. Like, we can't have 8 red coins and the big electric Koopa at the same level at the same time. I doubt this is the case anyway. But even if that is the case, ones like the quote-unquote secret stages have absolutely no excuse to be blocked off until the correct episode is unlocked. Which, as an aside, if we're nitpicking and bitching, secrets aren't usually presented as a part of the main story missions and shown exactly where they are before the player can even attempt to find the stages themselves. It's just one of many examples of opportunities for organic exploration and freedom being stifled by Sunshine's lack of confidence in itself and the player. I used Penis Park as an example, but these issues I have with structure apply to all but maybe like 2 levels, those being Hotel Delfino and Pianta Village, mostly because they're pretty small, and specifically with Hotel Delfino, the segmented nature of the levels feels super appropriate for this style of pacing, kinda like Mario Galaxy itself. Also, the Manta Ray boss fight is very fun, but again at the same time, why is the casino locked off? Even where it does work, this way of presenting challenges challenges is still arbitrary. Blue coins serve to alleviate this issue, and I was gonna be generous and say it delivers mixed results, but on further introspection I've decided that no, they're just pathetic. Each level contains a number of blue coins, some hidden, but a lot of them are just out in the open for the player to pick up as they progress through episodes. If you wander off in any direction of a map, there's a good chance you'll stumble across a few of these, often hidden behind graffiti or hard to reach areas. It then politely asks you every time one is collected if you'd like to save the game. How considerate. Blue coins feel like one of many poor compromises to the small amount of levels that Mario Sunshine has, reminiscent of Moons or Jinjos to a lesser extent, but so less rewarding because they contribute so little towards the actual main objective. They're also just lifeless. Like, really guys, that's the best you could come up with for a secondary collectible? Blue coins? Changing them to be toads you have to rescue, or hell, even just a little thing that has more personality than a different coloured coin could make it feel like there's at least some point to seeking them out. Alright, I haven't even explained the purpose of these little guys. 10 blue coins can be traded in for 1 shine, so at least they're useful for getting to the final boss, which requires, let me see, 50 shines. That's interesting because you have to get 7 shines in every level to unlock the final one anyway, so doing the math, 7 times 7 plus the 1 shine you get at the start, would mean that blue coins just unlock things quicker? I'm not even sure about that. I held on to all of mine till the last few episodes and still got access to everything pretty fast, and you'd have to collect so many to actually make an impact on the game's progression. Otherwise it would be very easy to say that blue coins serve zero purpose other than padding made to satisfy the absolute psychos that would want to 100% complete this dumpster fire for the most prestigious of awards, a shitty little photo after the credits. By the way, that wasn't the demons whispering to you back then. You heard me right. You do really have to play every single level to the 7th shine. The explanation for this in-game is that the 7th episode of each course is a Shadow Mario chase. Chase him out of all 7 worlds and you unlock the final level, Corona Mountain, aptly named for how fucking diseased that boat section is. The explanation in real life seems more likely to be a development time cut short and the designers having to enforce this and squeezing everything they can out of the small amount of content they do have. It means that if you get stuck on a particularly frustrating episode, and you will get stuck at one point or another, you're not only stopped from progressing in that whole level, but also from finishing the game. At this point, you're not just more linear in approach than 64, but even Galaxy as well, since that game gave you way more freedom in what stars you would collect to gain enough to unlock the final boss. This is all speculation on what led to the structure the game takes, because I really don't mind about the solid number of worlds present. I always prefer quality over quantity, and all this talk about the game structure would just be water under the bridge if it had great worlds and challenges to play in and with. Just a shame then that Mario Sunshine's level design also sucks ass. So Mario Sunshine's levels have a lot of problems in common with each other, its design philosophy staying pretty consistent throughout the whole game. For this reason I won't be going through each of the 7 main worlds and picking them apart separately in this video. If I did that, it would be like 2 hours long and repeat itself every 10 minutes. Instead, I'm going to go over what I believe to be the key flaws in this game's approach to level design, use a few examples and then move on. Maybe single out some specifically egregious sections that really stood out to me when replaying it. If you're playing Sunshine and get frustrated during a certain section, it's probably because of one of these reasons. The first and biggest problem I think this game has is its so-called difficulty. Bar a few certain shines, Mario Sunshine isn't that hard of a game. It's just really damn tedious instead. A good third of the levels are designed with quite the focus on verticality, and a lot of the ones that don't still have sections that do. For an open platforming game, this is really hard to do right, because if you miss one jump, you could be sent straight to the start, except it's usually worse than losing a life and having to start over with a more horizontal stage, because traversing land is just quicker than climbing upwards. The difference between Rico Harbor and say Womp's Fortress or Cool Cool Mountain is that the 64 levels are designed to be hubs for platforming challenges, and therefore are more compact and give the player more freedom in how they traverse the levels with cannons and secret warps to get around quicker. The platforms are also chunkier because Mario doesn't have a safety blanket strapped to his back at all times, so we might as well address that now. I'm leaving talking about Flood fully for later, but the way it affects Sunshine's level design can't be ignored any longer. Flood breaks Mario. Just flat out makes him a completely different character to control. See, when you give the player of a platformer the ability to stop midair and hover around their position for a few seconds, you back yourself into a corner, because now suddenly you've made every reasonably placed and sized platform way too easy to make. But that would only stay interesting for the first level or so while the player is still getting to grips with the mechanics. What do you do once they're comfortable with using this hover function? I don't fucking know. know, let's just put infinitely respawning enemies that home in on the player and then make the platforms far apart or tiny. This leads to so many frustrating moments where you're nearly at the end of a stage, miss one particularly obnoxious platform placement, or get knocked off by an enemy that spawned from the goop you couldn't clear because you were too focused on the platforming part of this 3D platformer, and suddenly all the progress you've made vanishes as Mario tumbles down into probably some water. Or even worse than that scenario, getting to the end of a challenge only to realize you don't have enough water to make that last jump. Basically, FLUDD's hover nozzle is an overly forgiving mechanic by nature, so to combat that, the developers designed the levels to be overly punishing. It's both easy and frustrating in that sense. Another problem is that they can't punish a player by just taking a life away and returning them to the most recent checkpoint because A, these are open levels, so even if the only shine you can get is at the top of this tower, the player could easily just want it to fall down and collect one of those ever important blue coins, and B, Sunshine already figured out that lives were a pointless system left over from arcade machines, but is too much of a little bitch to actually commit to this. Aside from Pianta Village and the secret stages, there are no bottomless pits present in Mario Sunshine's levels, which are usually the main cause of death in these games. Your fall is almost always broken by the ground, a lower platform, or water. Your life meter isn't much of an issue either, since coins are plentiful, so the only times I found myself dying were on the secret levels, and they think lives are bullshit as well. Every secret stage has at least one infinitely respawning green mushroom right towards the start of the level, and then another placed somewhere towards the end if it's a long one. These are always so insultingly easy to obtain, it makes you wonder, why bother? Like seriously, all you're doing is wasting time by getting these. They're rarely an extra challenge that makes the player consider the risk versus reward of getting the mushroom, and instead presents the player with the fantastic dilemma of, can I really be bothered to halt my tracks and ground pound this nail another 3 times when I did it on my last 20 attempts of this level, compiled solely of basic geometric shapes, organized in such a fashion that I can only imagine makes sense after smoking crack? I don't know what the title of this video is gonna be yet. It could be some generic pretentious video essay title like Mario Sunshine is an absolute mess or Sunshine is an overrated disaster. But if YouTube let me express my true feelings towards this game, it would be Mario Sunshine can suck my nut. This game's deep commitment to wasting your time shows up in countless ways throughout, not just through its frustrating level design, but in things like the Yoshi eggs, let's say, where you have to bring a specific fruit to any egg before the Yoshi hatches from it. Why? Because there are like 3 missions in the game that make use of the different colored Yoshis, so of course you have to spend a minute or so finding a pineapple in Delfino Plaza just to get 1 blue coin. Which reminds me of the fruit basket piantas in the plaza as well, where they ask you for 3 fruits in exchange for a shine that's ultimately useless in the main story and is more clear padding for 100% wackos. Is this fun to anyone? Has anyone actually enjoyed these missions, or is it just another thing that the fans of this game who haven't played it in 10 years like to gloss over when reminiscing about it? Just how I forgot that if you know what you're doing, you'll end up fighting the same boss 4 times in the first hour to unlock the starting batch of levels, on top of fighting another boss that you have to fire water into while its mouth is open to beat in that same hour. By that point, it just feels like an insult to returning players who just want to open up those levels. In fact, if you're thinking about replaying this game, first of all, why? Second of all, do yourself a favor and ignore all optional content. Not only because there's no incentive to do so, but also because a lot of it is some of the most tedious stuff in the game. The sting of the pachinko level hits even harder when you realize it's not going towards any real progress in the game and instead wastes your time. Hell, not just the level itself, but even the method of accessing it feels purposefully drawn out, waiting for the boat to arrive and then having to make sure you hit the jump perfectly, otherwise back to waiting for you, just like the moving platforms and poles in Deco Harbor or the stunlot in Cataquax in Gelato Bitch. Actually, while we're on the subject of enemies, I'd like to talk about them for a bit, because I've got a bone to pick with these dudes, specifically the Swoopin' Stews and the Wind Duppies. Swoopin' Stews spawn from goop, infinitely. At the start of the game, this doesn't sound like too bad of an issue, but the novelty of cleaning that stuff up with the spray nozzle starts to drift away around the same time enemies start producing goop themselves. This leads to the player being barraged by the little cretins at any opportunity the game gives itself, and only serves to break any sense of flow felt at that specific moment. Because really, what screams fun more than stopping your tracks during platforming every few moments? Not because of the goop being a hazard itself, but because you know it's gonna spawn the fun police at any second. It's even worse during boss boss battles, especially the second PT Piranha fight. While the player is going to be focused on the boss and their attacks, the boss shoots out goop creating more stews, but the game wants you to focus on the boss, so you ignore the goop and end up getting your ass handed to you. I swear it's pretty general consensus that bosses who spawn regular enemies as a distraction are kind of lazy and annoying. Yet why does this game get a free pass? It feels like, again, the developers had this great idea of goop being used as area denial and using FLUDD to clean it up, but that ended up being too easy to ignore, and so they adjusted it to become frustrating instead. I'm not saying any of this is what actually happened, but it just feels like that's the case. The wind duppies fall in line with this as well. Hovering makes air maneuvers way too easy, but it also slows the player down. So to add challenge, enemies that maneuver the air fast and with pinpoint accuracy on the player are thrown in. Except these can only be killed permanently with a Yoshi, otherwise they will just annoy you infinitely, and you guessed it, waste the player's time. I honestly don't have big problems with most of the other enemies. I can't say anything particularly great about them, but they're not as egregious as these two fuckers. The Electro Koopas are cute though. When I mentioned the novelty of clearing up goop wearing off quickly, I only kinda half meant it. I think FLUDD spray nozzle is actually used pretty well in some cases, and I see a lot of potential with the mechanic, but Mario Sunshine tends to have only a few tricks up its sleeve in general gameplay. I think about the time I unlocked Serena Beach is when I stopped caring about the blue coin graffitis, because why would I? Too much time spent on too little of a reward. The Shadow Mario chases are rather good. Shame they only last about half a minute. Genuinely, these shines are so fun. I always get disappointed when they end immediately after I've got into a groove with them. The Manta Storm boss fight in Serena Beach is actually a personal highlight of the game for me, but I'd say most of the boss fights use the function well, and the timed cleaning missions add a sense of urgency to the mechanic that combines great together. The spray nozzle and cleaning aspect of Mario Sunshine works best when paired with action-intensive sequences. It makes for some great frantic gameplay where in some cases you'll be literally spraying and praying that you hit your target while avoiding obstacles and the such. The sad thing is, for most of the game, the spray nozzle will just be used as busy work, halting the player in their tracks to get rid of some goop or graffiti and then carry on with business as usual. A lot of people say that the secret stages where they take away FLUDD are the best parts of Sunshine. I disagree. Not only do these levels showcase how weird Mario moves without his safety net in the game, something we'll cover soon, don't worry, but they also look and play like a 15-year-old's first attempt in the Unity engine. Like, ignoring the boring geometry and setting of these stages, their actual platforming challenges switch between suspiciously easy and bull-bustingly hard in the same area. And the case for a lack of checkpoints goes straight out the window because these levels are one straight path to the shine. They don't feel very carefully planned out either. I know they are, and I know a lot of thought went behind the placement and design behind them, and I also know that the copy and pasted assets were more likely due to time restraints, but they appear so often and have such little presentation to them that it's hard not to imagine a developer going, yeah, just slap another slow moving twisty block here, that'll extend the playtime and maybe even cause a few retries. And I know there are levels in here not designed to be hard, but frustrating. Even if the rest of the game isn't, some of these stages were absolutely made while snickering was going on from behind the monitor. And if you disagree with me on this, I've just got one thing to say to you. I'm a chuckster. Ironically, this weird-ass level design actually works better with FLUDD. Those red coin challenges are actually pretty fun. It feels so backwards that they're the optional versions of these stages because they're easier and make way more sense to be part of the main game than the original versions where they're FLUDDless. Mario Sunshine, what are you smoking? It's like you're at odds with your own central game focus. Everything I've talked about here adds up to a game that feels rushed. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, and I don't really care. The combination of sloppy level design, constantly repeated challenges, blatant padding, all paired with elaborate set pieces and appealing graphics, makes me see a game that wants to impress, but only lands about a quarter of the time, and that's me being generous. The other 3/4 are spent cleaning graffiti for useless blue coins, waiting for slow-moving platforms to arrive, being knocked off of those same platforms by cheaply designed enemies, and then wondering why you even bother. Time wasting is this game's main trick, and it's not a fun one. The thing is, the level design wasn't given much to work with in the first place, or too much in the case of Sunshine, because at the base of every good Mario game is its movement and controls, and without that, the game falls apart from every other angle. Super Mario Sunshine's movement is broken to its core. When designing Mario 64, it's been stated that the first stages of development were spent fine-tuning Mario's controls and polishing them to a mirror sheen. And because of this, I still feel like Mario 64 has the most fluid moveset in the series. Things like in-between animation frames for turning, the addition of long jumps, backflips, and crouching turned Mario into a dream to control. Once they had that, the rest of the game was designed around taking full capability of this, creating a playground that would be fun to just simply maneuver around, let alone when actually working towards an objective. I'll be comparing the controls most directly with 64 because no other 3D Marios have been released at the time Sunshine was created, and they were intended to share a lot of the same structure. Sunshine uses 64's controls as a baseline, but molds it into a weird hybrid version that feels wrong. It feels wrong. It's like they saw the flow that 64's controls allowed for and wanted to improve them. Instead, they just cranked everything up and turned it from feeling buttery smooth to greasy as oil. This dude has no traction. Not only does he slip off ledges, he slips off pretty much everything. This is less noticeable when you have FLUDD because the hover nozzle is there to pick up some of the slack, but the off-feeling controls really have a chance to shine in the aforementioned secret stages where FLUDD is taken away and you start to notice that Mario decided to wear his butter shoes when going on vacation that year. Everything just feels so floaty. It rarely feels like Mario is actually walking on the surfaces as it does him just gliding across them, even when moving in a straight line. The long jump was taken away, along with the ability to crouch entirely, instead being replaced by a dedicated dive button, which is a mixed bag. Sure, dive surfing is a quick and moderately fun way to get around, but just like everything else in Sunshine's moveset, the momentum at which Mario moves is so unruly that it becomes way too easy to mess up. One thing that Sunshine forgets in relation to momentum is that it's okay to take it away from the player when they perform an action. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's preferable. I'll use sharp 180 backslides as an example. The halt and skid before beginning movement in the opposite direction is way shorter than 64, and you start moving in that opposite direction way quicker. A lot of the time, players won't perform this action with the intention of moving in that direction though, using it more as an emergency halt maneuver than anything else. And the longer animation and skid gives time for the player to release the control stick and return to a regular standing position. So when Sunshine speeds that process up, it becomes harder for an average player to respond, and causing frustration where there shouldn't be. I don't think this can be countered with, oh, just get good, because it does feel slippery, not smooth, right? Like, I'm not just going crazy and rambling out my ass here, am I? Don't tell me if I am, just nod along and comment something like, yes, absolutely, Ovindle, your game opinions are correct as always and never, ever misinformed. Disliked and subscribed with notifications on. The removal of a crouch button also means backflips now have to be performed exclusively through backslides as well, and it could explain a bit why they feel so weird, since now they have to accommodate to a pretty key feature. And yeah, I'll be honest, backflips feel really good to pull off in this game, but the spinning jump added in Sunshine works in a similar way with more control, and if my speculation is right, it wasn't worth the trade-off. If it's wrong, then the game still sucks. This could also explain why it's so easy to make Mario's leg animation go funky and have him actually glide across the ground for a few frames when doing all this. Mario also builds up to maximum speed way faster than 64, and also feels speedier in general. By way faster I mean by a few frames, but in moment-to-moment gameplay that makes such a big difference it's hard to explain. Alright, it's time to shit on FLUDD one last time before the conclusion of this video. So FLUDD is a fantastic idea, botched harder than the plastic surgery I'll get in 10 years to remain a femboy forever. The concept of giving Mario a multi-purpose jetpack seems like a natural expansion of the groundwork laid in the previous game, but the way it's implemented serves to break flow whenever it's used. Using the hover nozzle to reach far away platforms is cool at first, but after the initial wow factor, it just becomes a mundane extension of Mario's jump that interrupts the pace at which the player is going just to glide along the air for a few seconds. Which might also explain Mario's increased ground velocity, since you'd want to regain that momentum as quickly as possible after landing. God, it's so easy to be a crazy conspiracy theorist about the design choices in this game, because it feels like a batch of puzzle pieces from separate sets all recut to fit perfectly together, but the final picture is just a jumbled mess of ideas and compromises. The way Mario games are designed with movement first explains the insane level design, because like I said earlier, the hover nozzle leads to a catch-22 scenario where normal, sane level design would be too easy. So instead, only about a third of the jumps in Sunshine are doable without hovering. It's like if Mario 64 required you to dive at the end of most jumps to clear its platforming sections, except the dive is actually fast, versatile, and requires a degree of skill to make use of. The closest thing to it I can think of is the cap throw in Odyssey, and while I have my own issues with that mechanic, I can confidently say it's way less intrusive to the overall pacing of the game. Also, as an aside, it's pretty hilarious that Odyssey includes a capture a lot like Flood, but in the context of that game works way better. Just shows how much has been learned between then and now. Actually, scratch that. The Tanuki suit in Mario 3D Land is closer, but also works to be less intrusive than Flood because it's optional and also complements the level design instead of just backing it into a corner. Flood could have been made way better by using it to improve stuff that Mario doesn't do as well naturally, instead of just trying to fix what isn't broken. Like, for a game with so much water and a water-powered jetpack, swimming has no excuse being as painful as it still is. Yes, they do give you a boost nozzle which fixes water movement, but the nozzle system just makes it so that you're never happy with what you have at any specific moment. The times at which the boost nozzle would have been most appreciated are usually when I just failed a hover nozzle jump and been sent plummeting into water. The rocket nozzle is a better example of using Flood to complement Mario's existing set of abilities, giving him a superpowered jump that feels way better than hovering and gives the opportunity for more challenging levels without feeling so phoned in. It feels less intrusive because while Mario isn't a god who can float mid-air, he can jump. As I'm writing this conclusion, looking at the preview montage for Super Mario Sunshine on the 3D All-Stars collection, I'm reminded of a lot of the fun I had with this game, which makes me kind of sad because there are a lot of great ideas and fun concepts that were put into it. On the surface, it might just seem like another great entry in this series that is usually on the forefront of simple yet masterfully done design. Yet as soon as you begin to look deeper, it crumbles apart, leaving only small fragments of that quality. It's not a Mario game, it's a facsimile of one. Those fragments are things like the Manta Ray boss fight, the Blucher racing, and the Shadow Mario chases. Little moments where the mechanics and level design work together to create a fun feeling that I assume is intended for the whole experience. Not only that, but the level of visual and stylistic polish is still top notch. I think the continuity of Delfino Island is really neat. Instead, when playing Mario Sunshine, the main emotion I'm usually feeling is frustration. Whether that's over slippery controls, the platforming challenges that feel designed to waste your time, or the contradictory relationship its level design has to its structure, playing this game always leaves me in a bad mood. I've tried to enjoy it. It feels like I should, but this game just sucks, dude. It's frustrating in every sense, both to play and to see the potential it had, because there's so much that I can see working out wonderfully in theory and then in practice just completely flopping. A wise man once said to never take half measures, only do full measures. And Mario Sunshine is a game that feels filled to the brim with half measures. And thinking of all the different ways and reasons this game was botched certainly makes you feel like Neo in the Matrix, where you can see everything and it all makes sense with this complicated conspiracy, when in reality, the reason this game is bad is more than likely pretty boring. It was kinda rushed. That's okay, game development is incredibly difficult, and sometimes ideas just end up not working. I don't know why I decided to end my 6,000 word video essay on a Breaking Bad reference that leads into a Matrix reference, but fuck it, we ball. Mario Sunshine was an experiment, and I can commend it on that. Experimentation is good. It's how we learn what works and what doesn't. Sometimes that can lead to a great game, and other times, it leads to a pachinko level. Hey everyone, hope this video wasn't too vitriolic for you. I just feel very strongly about this game. I had a lot of fun writing, recording and editing this, and I hope you had fun watching it. I'm planning on switching things up on this channel in the next couple of months, so if you want to see what that looks like, please subscribe and comment down below if I'm completely wrong about everything I say in this video. I'd actually love to hear what you all think about this game, because it's quite a divisive one, I think. Yeah, so I'll catch you next time. See ya.